Atocha Global Analytics. Please like and subscribe.
Hello again, everyone. This is KT with Atocha Global Analytics. As always, I have to remind you, Atocha Global Analytics was created to provide insight and foresight into the street-level impacts of macroeconomics, real estate and finance trends, and the policies that shape them. First, let's start with a summary. As we've already covered, please know what lots sold for when there was normalcy before. Again, we've gone through what normalcy is when things had reverted or to the mean or the median. Know what new homes sold for at the same time frame, and establish a ratio or relationship between the two by dividing the lot value by the price for the new home at the time. In my area, again, the range was usually between 9 and 13%. Get structural construction costs for what you want to compare it to. Go to a contractor who's building homes of a similar size and quality level as what you intend to buy. Verify what lot values were with him, even though you've already done your own research. Verify the site costs, same thing, and verify the site improvement costs. This should provide you with everything you need to know for the new package price, which is basically everything we've covered so far. And with that, we launch into what I've named component number 3, which is depreciation. All right, so let's look at a great example. A 40-year-old house I'm familiar with it's been remodeled in a few phases and was just appraised last year in 2022, really at the peak of the market, just as interest rates had started being increased. So the house, it's not original. It had, its most recent new roof was in 2017. It had newly completed kitchen. Both bathrooms were redone and upgraded a bit back in 2015. It's got the furniture grade vanities, that sort of thing. And all the flooring was updated to tile in the bedrooms in 2015, but the main living space was retiled again in 2022 with porcelain tile. Also, they upgraded the electrical at some point. The service was newer. Many things were updated, including all the receptacles and switches. There's new paint in and out. It has a solid AC, but it's older. It'll probably have to be replaced in a few more years. But that's the only part that's dated. It's still got all the original windows and the entry doors are all the same, with the exception of what goes into the garage. It was updated to a fireproof fiberglass door, but it's had these updates, and the rest is really a whole lot newer. If you look at it, it's got a lot of things that really make it appear to be a newer home. A lot of updated light fixtures over the years and that sort of thing. So even though it is effectively much newer than 40 years old, how much newer is the question. So the appraiser said that this 40-year-old home was depreciated about 20%. Now, doing the math, the appraiser's not trying to say that the home should last to 200 years. That's not how this works. A typical home in Florida is usually valued with an expectation of the home lasting 60 to 75 years, and that's really an expression of post-World War II building booms here in Florida. So what's the appraiser really saying here? Well, if you use 75 years for the projected life, he's saying that the home is effectively 15 years old. And how can it be is kind of the logical question. Well, here's some insight. Even though I'm saying that he's saying it's however many years old, it's not really accurate. What he's supposed to be doing is, if he's a good appraiser, he's supposed to be saying, I believe that the market would assign 15 years effective age to this house with an expectation of it lasting 75 years total. The opinion is supposed to be an expression of the market. At least that's what it is in theory. So there are some very technical ways to calculate the actual depreciation of a home. But here's what most appraisers think of when they're doing it. They think effective age divided by expected life. And so how's that house become 15 years effective age when it's really 40 years old? So here's how that likely worked in the appraiser's mind, and I'll express that here. I want to note that there is a point where the market usually hits a bit of a wall for making an older home effectively newer. A good rule of thumb, without real updates to the electrical, which I mentioned had been done with this house, but also the windows, the doors, plumbing systems, not just the fixtures. It's tough to end up with more than about 50% off the actual age. So in the instance I'm talking about, um, that'd be 20 years from 40 years. And however, the house is an example because the electrical system was really updated. It was truly up to code, and all the switches and receptacles, everything cosmetically was newer. It wasn't just replaced; it was newer in style. So it ended up 15 years rather than 20. If the house was actually 50 years old instead of the age of 40, you'd probably end up with a 25-year-old effective age. Because it is a bit proportional, and it ends up a little bit of a sliding scale. So anyway, it's not just math. It does take a little bit of windage, but it's a bit, and since it's a bit more nuanced, I want to describe it a little bit more in depth. So it's not real hard to calculate, and I'll show you right now. So let's look at the depreciation method first, and then we'll look at the effective age calculation. All right, so the construction costs $310,000. I rounded 304 up a little bit, so it's $310,000. The age is 40. Expected life is 75. It sounds like it should be depreciated 53%, which would leave only 144,000 and change for the improvement value. However, if we use the effective age life method and look at it that way, which is the way the market looks at it, you've still got the $310,000 construction costs. The age may be 40, but the effective age is only 15. You still have the 75-year expected life. So the depreciation only ends up 20%. As you can see, it's about $100,000 more attributable to the improvement or to the house itself using that alternate method, which is, again, the effective age life method. All right, so here's how that calculation may have gone in the appraiser's mind. So the actual age is 40, but then there's new interior paint throughout, so it took off a couple years for that. New flooring, a few years for that. New roof cover, a few years for that. And new exterior paint, a couple years for that. So without those major upgrades, it may have made it to about age 30 effectively. But it's got a newer kitchen, so that's a big item. So that takes 5 years off of it. New bathrooms, that's fairly significant. So that's another 4 years off. New lighting fixtures, new plumbing, the electrical service update, all this, a couple of years each. So you end up with then 15 years effective age. And again, this is kind of a guess at what he was thinking, but this is, an example that I wanted to show you. Okay, now we get to see this start to come together a bit. This also means more numbers, so get yourself prepared. Let's start assembly so you can see how it really works. Here's the first pieces: lot price and site costs. Follow that with new construction costs. I've expanded this a bit so you can see how different parts of a home come together as a whole. Now, in the previous video, I showed how the price per square foot should be $190 based on the quote from the builder. That's $190 per square foot of living space, but the cost of the garage and porches is included in that $190 per square foot. So the actual cost for the living space is less because some of that cost is actually attributable to other space. So a good rule of thumb is that the garage space, presuming the garage is under an aggregate roof with the rest of the house, should be about 40% of the cost of the living space. So it takes less to build garage space because it doesn't have to be finished as much. And same with the porches, probably about 25% of the cost of living space. So if we have $190 per square foot of living space, that works out to roughly $165 per square foot for living space, et cetera. And I show you here how this all breaks down. Okay, when you've added that in, then you add the site improvement costs. We now have the new house costs. In case your analysis works out where you can't get the lot by itself, or the lot and site costs end up being combined, you can still do the analysis. You just need to do it uniformly. You have to do all your analysis the same way and not mix up techniques. I've included that here for reference. That is the lot and the site costs combined as a ratio. So, however, the package price for a new home works out to be $447,700 regardless, and the current lot to package ratio is shown here is 24%. Now we shift gears and apply the effective age life method that I've just demonstrated, and so we can see the depreciation of the home. So here it is. I've retained 20% from my previous example. With that, we have a solid understanding of depreciation, and I can show you this. Here is the first of three snapshots that I've placed to compare. The first one is from 2011. We have the ratios we developed, the construction costs at the time, and the depreciation for the existing home in the market, and we can see it well below normalcy in 2011. Here it is. We can see that it normalized in 2015, but the construction costs were significantly lower than now. And back to the 2023 current slide, we can see we are way above normalcy today. So I've given you the three snapshots to compare here, and we have the ratios we need, the construction costs at the appropriate time frames, the depreciation of the existing homes in the market, and we can see it below normalcy in 2011, around normalcy in 2015, and way above normalcy today. So with that, this is where it should be in 2023. Okay, so lot prices right now, if everything was normal, based on anchoring it to the current construction costs, lot prices should be around $40,000 to $50,000, about $45,000. Of course, you can see the construction costs there. You can see that I've also aggregated the site like I did previously. I'm continuing to use a 20% depreciation. So you can see where the range of where things really should be based on the previous anchors we've talked about. Yes, lots are massively overpriced, but construction costs will likely soften somewhat when the market slows, maybe 10% at most. For this, I've left construction costs the same, as I'm not trying to project that. Now, the astute observer should have noted something by now. The site improvements with the existing homes aren't the same cost or the same amount due as the contributory value of these items when it's with an existing home. And just like any kind of improvements, the site improvements actually do depreciate, but they don't really depreciate in the same way or in a measurable way like the rest of the actual home. So typically in the case of site improvements, they use a contributory value, and usually that's 50 to 75%, and they kind of do a qualitative windage, I guess you could say. But they usually do 50 to 75% as it seems to be expressed within the market. And again, it may vary from market to market somewhat, but a good rule of thumb, it's going to be somewhere in the 50 to 75% range of cost. And with that, we've reached the end of part 3. Here's the summary. Lot sales in a normal market and new home sales at the same time to get your ratio. New home and other related costs for construction. Depreciation using the effective age life method, and we have one more component in our next video. We've got a couple extras I'm going to throw in there, but just like how construction cost is an anchor for lot values through ratio, the next component we're going to examine pretty much acts in a similar way to anchor everything, at least somewhat. So I'm going to cover that and put a neat bow on everything with the next video. See you then.
Atocha Global Analytics was created to provide insight and foresight into the street-level impacts of macroeconomics, real estate and finance trends, and the policies that shape them. What is happening in the financial world today shows us that those of us on Main Street are in a street fight for our financial futures. In order to win this fight, we need to become truly streetwise.